Internet historian. Let's just watch this for fun. Let's have a good time. Internet historian. I am become fancy theater.
Tisk, tisk, tisk.
Where's my...
Look at you. Uncultured. Unsophisticated.
Sure.
Middle class. No, don't speak. You'll just make me throw up. I'd say cover up with
This
this
is how
dinner
I
jacket,
feel.
but I'm afraid that you'd get your head stuck in the sleeve and asphyxiate. Listen, lowball. Don't you want to be refined?
Refined?
Don't you want to be fancy?
Yeah.
Like moi? That's French.
I'll tell you what makes you fancy, and I hate to bring this up again because this is not sponsored, but if you want to feel fancy in a group, bring out a nice bowl of peanut butter crunch. It instantly refines your palate. People think of you as sort of a tastemaker in the group. That satisfying crunch and that healthy aftertaste. Again, riboflavin is in this thing, so you know it's good for you. You know it's got what the body craves. Now that's PB.
But I have some good news. Before this financial year ends, I have decided to make a charitable deduction. It's you, champ. For you see,
You can have premarital sex.
There's virus. I have made several videos, though, which will show you how to bluff your way to the inner circles. Undetected. Yes. By the time the elites find out,
Neon Genesis Evangelion is psychological and intense.
it will be too late. I get you in, you eat all the hors d'oeuvres, and we get out. That's
Sounds great.
the plan. And let's begin your instruction with theater, the YouTube premium of upper society. And the first section, symphony. The first period of performance, that's
Okay.
called Baroque, from 1600 to 1750. This featured Bach and Vivaldi.
Wait, is this just... Okay, I'm getting the conceit here. This is a series of videos teaching me how to be fancy, and this one's all about the theater? You're just gonna teach me? All right.
Now, there was also a guy named Giuseppe Tartini, and he was
Okay.
the best one of them all, because one evening he had
I've never heard of him.
dream where the devil showed up and presented him with a deal. The devil would become his teacher and impart on him everything he knew about music. Yes. Once Tartini had learnt everything he could, he handed over his violin and asked the devil to play.
Okay.
The devil played the greatest musical piece that Tartini had ever heard. Tartini woke up with a gasp, and he tried to recreate what he had heard in the dream. And what he wrote down was his most famous piece, the best thing he had ever written. And he said, "This is shite compared to the..."
That is such incredible marketing for the time. You know what I'm saying? Instead of saying, hey, I wrote this new piece, it's kind of good, saying the devil came to me in a dream. He showed me the most beautiful piece of art ever created, and I have made a humble human tribute. I think that at the time goes fucking crazy. I think you have to hear it. I'm always impressed by the fact that, like, I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but I feel like nowadays, does anyone really sit around and just listen to people play piano? That's gotta be so rare, right? I know there's a few, but that doesn't happen a lot. You guys do that regularly? Now, of you who are not musicians. So that means somebody who's not a musician, but goes to watch someone play piano. No, you guys are lying. You're lying. You're absolutely lying. That's not, that Venn diagram does not exist, bro. No way. Yuja Wang next year. Who's Yuja Wang? Man, you're gonna go and just see this person play piano and that's it? I guess this must be real because she is a famous pianist, which means she goes around and plays and people just fucking listen. I feel like if you're not a musician, how can you even... I'm being sincere here. I'm not trying to appear uncultured. I just can't imagine like sitting there and it blowing me away. That's crazy to me. It's like watching a LoL pro carry in the top lane. Oh, now I get it. Oh, maybe I'll go to one. I see. It's like the Shy, dude. Why didn't you just say that? It's like kinging on Atrioc. Okay, now we're talking.
This is nothing better than a tribute. And that's where you get the Tenacious D song from. He named this piece The Devil's Trill, and he claimed that the difference between his version and the version in the dream was so great that he would have smashed his violin and quit music forever had he not needed it for his job. Classical, 1750 to 1830. Mozart and Beethoven show up like da-da-da-da. Now, Beethoven was famously known for going deaf. Once that happened, everyone told him that he should just quit music forever.
Right.
But he just wouldn't hear it. Anyway, there's so much I could say about these two.
Did Beethoven and Mozart ever meet? Did Beethoven and Mozart ever meet? Beethoven met Mozart in 1787. What did Mozart say about Beethoven? Mozart heard the young Beethoven play and said, "Mark that young man. He will make a name for himself in the world." That's crazy. That's crazy. But that's only one source because Wikipedia says it can't be determined they actually met. Sorry. Mozart heard a young Beethoven play and said, "Mark my words, that man will be a legend." That reminds me of when a young Atrioc saw SKT1 Faker's very first professional game and said he's a genius artist and the mid lane is his brush. This guy Faker's been relatively unknown until now. Pretty clear he's the real deal. Here's to Faker, my new favorite mid. Interesting. I feel like he called it.
Kissing, and it's my favorite. Great piece. Mwah. Oh, you played wonderfully too. Mwah. We also enjoyed listening. Mwah. Mwah, 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 mwah. All you need to know about this one is Chopin and Berlioz. Berlioz, however, was not getting any kisses. He was relatably, painfully single, living alone in Paris.
Cringe.
The city of love. So, here's how it started. He's there and he's in his early 20s, and he is looking for a new GF. So one day, he attends a Shakespearean play, and on stage, he spots an actress, and he immediately falls in love with her. He wrote her many notes, confessing his love.
That's terrible. That's not good. That's just like a fucking parasocial, like you watch a Twitch stream or something, start sending a letter. That's pretty damn bad.
But her DMs went unreplied. So he began writing a symphony about her. How can she ignore this? And also around this time he started smoking a lot of opium, but don't worry about that. Anyway, so he wrote this piece just for her. However, his DM still went unreplied.
A lot of hopium,
For several
really.
months he started to get quite disheartened. Until he saw another girl. So he immediately fell in love with her instead, and he said, "You know what? I'm going to change that symphony I wrote, so now it's about this other lady, and not about that ugly one that I didn't like anyway." This time, happily, she reciprocated, and they fell in love and were set to marry. Suddenly, what the fuck? Phones haven't been invented yet. Yes, hello, I'm busy. Oh, Rome? To study? Absolutely, I'll catch the first flight out. So Berlioz went to Rome to study music. However, while he was away, he got some news.
Berlioz. I have to tell you something.
Sacre bleu. Some other, more handsome musician swooped in and married his girl while he was in Rome, and they ran away together. Berlioz was furious, and he set his mind to solving the problem.
With music again?
I know what I'm going to do. I'm gonna murder her and
me?
her lover.
Excuse me? That's not,
And a
no.
mole.
I thought it was,
And then I'm
No.
gonna do a self-murder.
no, it should have been write music about it. Express your feelings through song, not that's not.
All right,
That's
so
not
this
a
gets
good
pretty
way.
elaborate. His idea is to dress up as a housemaid. He has bought both poison and 2 guns. Now he is going to sneak into the house of his ex-fiancée, and there she and her mother will be sipping tea, which he has already poisoned. Then he will pull off the clothing
This is literally Agent 47. This is literally Agent 47 in Dartmoor, yeah.
and reveal himself. Blam, blam, sad overture. So he heads back home to Paris to do it. But while on his travels there, takes quite a while, he has to change carriages. And when he does that, he leaves the guns in one of the little cubbies. Well, his next leg on the stop is Genoa, and he decides, you know what? Let's just skip the murder. and goes straight to the finale. So he stops off in the port city of Genoa, and he's there at the side of the Mediterranean. He pauses for a moment, then he throws himself in. Now, some people see this whole thing happen, and they think he's had an accident, so they run in to try to save him. They pull him to the shore. He lived. So he has now reached his lowest point. He dejectedly continues home. He gets back to Paris, and he wallows around, feeling pretty sorry for himself. But he decides, you know what?
It's a sign.
I may as well do what I do best in times of trouble.
Write another song. Write a song.
Smoke a lot of opium. And while I do that, I shall write a symphony.
Someone in chat said, I have little time for thinking in between getting high and smoking weed, which are, to my understanding, the same thing. So, and not necessarily a great long-term way to live.
Although I ain't gonna name it after that hoe who stole my heart. And so he went back to work. But here's the thing. It was the greatest piece he had ever written. And it premiered to a huge crowd. And you know what? It was a smash hit. #1 on iTunes. But then, and here's a bloody plot twist. Remember the first girl? Well, she attended that concert and she realized that Berlioz was a genius. And then she wrote a letter to your boy saying how good your bloody symphony was, and sorry about not replying, I just put my phone down and got super busy or whatever. By the way, I love you. And so Berlioz goes, well, I love you too. And a year later,
that easy.
They were married. It's a beautiful moral of the story. See, fellas, don't jump in the Mediterranean. Anyway, a few years later, they got divorced because weirdly, he cheated on his wife with the housemaid. Not that one, a different one. But then he married that housemaid.
Oh,
Hooray.
okay, I guess.
But then when he died later on, for some reason, he gets buried with both of them.
Why?
Strange.
They weren't even married that long. Okay.
Watching Netflix, are you?
Just still
All
Nord?
tucked in with a 3-hour essay on Good Game Good, and here's why.
Fallout New Vegas is actually the only base Bethesda game.
Turn that off. I've got something for you much less enjoyable and far more expensive. We're going to the theater.
Oh, we're back!
Theater, from the ancient Greek, theatron, the most dramatic of the Transformers. It
Sorry,
means
do you guys actually sit down in the bed with your phone and put on a 3-hour fucking YouTube video? And then watch it till you fall asleep? That's crazy. That's crazy. That's a lot of people saying yes. Only way I can fall asleep. I watched your Fortnite VOD last night. That came out this morning. I mean, I'm not saying I don't watch a video in bed. I've watched some. For a while, I was watching a Gadmator or fucking Gotham chess videos right before bed. I'd watch one. What I would do is I would watch the Magnus part till I finished enjoying, and then I would skip to the non-Magnus part and fall asleep.
it's a place
scary,
for viewing. Here's a Roman theater. They were quite simple back then. You have the stage, the auditorium, and the vomitorium. Now, for a very long time, people thought that the vomitorium was a place where the Romans would gorge themselves, where they would eat so much that they would throw up, and then gorge themselves again because they were so decadent and or bulimic. But it comes from the word vomere, which means to spew forth, because that's where people go in and out. So vomitorium is just a dramatic way of saying the entrance. Now, if you skip forward...
Imagine watching Five Nights at Freddy's in the Coliseum. Bro, you can basically do that right now with a fucking theater. It's not really any different. It's fucking tiered seats. What? That's not a huge example. That would be fucking crazy.
To the 1800s, things are getting a lot more modernized.
Ooh.
But they still didn't have electric. So they had what's called the limelight. What they would do was take a piece of quicklime and heat it up super hot, which will naturally glow very bright. They would then take reflective mirrors and lenses to focus the beam, and they would use that as an early form of the spotlight.
That's fucking crazy!
The limelight is not because it's green, but because it's made from quicklime. In Elizabethan times, they had the yard, and you could get in here for about a penny apiece. And this is where all the poor people stood to watch the shows. It's like when you go to Oppenheimer and you end up with the worst seats in the IMAX theater, right? But thankfully, in modern times, we have fixed that problem. We kicked out all the poor people and we sunk the floor down low and put in an orchestra pit. Now, these things are usually 6 to 12 feet deep, so they're not obstructing the audience's view. But having a giant hole at the end of a stage is quite dangerous.
Oh, shit.
So usually they put a big net there as well. And yet, a lot of people still get pitted. Like a lot of people. In 2011, during a production of The Sound of Music, one of the lead actresses fell into the orchestra pit and was left paralyzed from the waist down.
Excuse me?
In 2009, a conductor, not a superconductor, just a regular one, fell 14 feet into the dark pit and broke 9 vertebrae and 1 ankle. Mamma mia. And he fell on his pointy conducting thing. At the Bolshoi Theatre, a violinist died from his injuries after falling into the pit. This theatre is prone to all sorts of accidents, by the way. It's kind of cursed, but performers and musicians...
so deadly and dangerous? Just there has to be a way to fix it. If they don't have a net, don't do it. I watched one of those Poker Face, the detective show or whatever, and one of the murderers uses the pit. They like change the mark or something so the person walks in and dies.
In 1988, an 82-year-old man fell from his balcony box seating all the way down into the pit during a performance of Macbeth. He died.
Wait, I'm sorry. That one I don't feel so bad for. During the intermission, the man was sitting on the balcony rail. When an usher requested he tipped over backwards and fell. That's, you know, at some point, if you're gonna fucking jump on the rail, I don't feel so sorry for you. That's dumb as hell, bro. The usher gotta feel terrible? No! How's the usher's fault?
Even already dead people are getting pitted. In 2016, a man sprinkled his friend's ashes into the orchestra pit at the Met Theatre. This happened during the intermission, and it was a sort of tribute to a mentor of his. But of course, people went, "What the hell are you doing?" And he goes, "Oh, I don't know." And he flees the scene. Everyone's coughing and sneezing up dead guy, and people think, "Is this anthrax? What is this?" So they call in the anti-terrorism police, and the whole show is cancelled for the rest of the evening.
It's actually kind of a based way to remember your friend, you know? Make it a day.
In 1888, Frederick Federici was playing the role of Mephistopheles in Faust at the Princess Theatre in Melbourne. As he descended the trap at the end of the play,
he dies.
Goodbye, everybody, goodbye.
Not cool.
He had a heart attack and died.
Well, that's not...
Never seen again. So as you can imagine...
You know what that feels like? That feels like somebody in charge of working the trap fucked up, was the first to find his body and said, "Oh no, it's a heart attack." He somehow had a heart attack. It wasn't the fucking trap falling way too fast. This guy had a heart attack. Ah, it's a heart attack. Let's just toss his body.
This many deaths, the theatre has become a highly haunted place. Oh yes. Ah, another ghost hole. Don't look inside. I did once. Almost went blind. That's why I wear the mask. Anyway, because of all the ghosts, the theatres do whatever they can to keep the spirits happy. See this? It's called a ghost light. When everything is closed, it is kept on always. Kept on for the ghosts, so that they don't, bump their shins in the dark or whatever.
So alive people don't fall off the stage and hurt themselves. It's a superstition, but a useful liability. Okay.
At the Palace Theatre in London, there has been some ghostly activity.
It seems to be a bit of a hotspot for ghostly activities.
And that's why they always keep 2 empty seats at the back, so that the ghosts may sit there and watch the show.
So that's why we traditionally kept a couple of seats.
You know, one more thing. Sorry to interrupt again, but when I remember reading that Spider-Man book, a thought struck me was that I always thought of Broadway as like this really fancy thing, like it's for fancy upper crust people, but in actuality all of the popular Broadway shows are like fucking Mean Girls the Musical or Shrek Live or some shit. It's like fucking, it's like Disneyland plays. I mean, it's just fucking, it's popular shit remade so you can watch it again in person. It's I mean, it's fun. I'm sure it's fun, but it's slop just like everything else. It's not, I don't know. I remember thinking like, wow, I have the wrong idea of Broadway, because I've never been to a Broadway play, to be honest. When he says donkey, it really hits live. Sorry. You're absolutely right. I have never experienced the thrill of seeing donkey live. I'll have to buy a ticket without haste.
Off sale for the ghosts. However, Harry Potter is so popular that we sell those seats now.
Oh. Also, most theaters close for 1 day per week. And on those...
So Harry Potter killed the magic, is what she's saying?
the ghosts are left to perform for each other in their own shows. Which they like, we think.
I was worried about my own vagina. It
Oh,
needed a
finally,
context,
the vagina
a
monologues.
culture of...
Shakespeare!
Shakespeare!
Editor's note. I started Googling Shakespeare and I got kind of distracted, so, I don't know, here's a WAV file. You can do something with this. Put him in like a classroom or something. All right, attention, everybody. I am your new teacher. You are a bunch of troubled inner city youths. All you know is shoot gun, fail test, and crime. But I'm here to teach you that actually, books and reading and stuff are actually pretty epic after
A
all.
lot of movies like this.
Now, the earliest known written language is what, Mr. Single Parent Household? I don't know, Teach, but you're never gonna get through to me. Oh, really? Well, what if I go back in time? Back in time. In the long, long ago, very few could read. But to be fair, most
Still
of
now.
the written languages
We're going in
were
a full
kinda
circle.
shit. This is cuneiform, the very first written language, and it has far too much punctuation. Then eventually came along the Egyptians, and they invented emojis, but they would call them hieroglyphs. Anyway, the typical written thing would go like this. Message for you, sir. Big bird, man with stick, man sitting, circle. Oh, more bills. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Eventually that became quite annoying, so the Phoenicians, who were a kind of Lebanese, very progressive, especially for those days, now, they came up with a better idea. They started going, hey, that sounds a bit like an A. Buh, that sounds a bit like a B.
Well, they wouldn't know the letter, right?
And so on and so on, until we had a proto-form of the alphabet.
It was more
Now,
complicated
the
than that.
Greeks thought that was pretty neato, but they said, let's come up with an even better version with 22 letters, and soon that will be like English. Oral history. Greeks more like geeks. Got 'em. Oh, yeah? Well, let me tell you about something highly relatable. Of the surviving Greek works, the greatest hits were the Iliad and the Odyssey. Now, because most people couldn't read, this stuff wasn't written down for a very long time, and instead it was memorized and performed. And when they performed it, they used one of these, a lyre. Now, this was
You
great.
got to imagine just the way retellings go, that a lot of shit was added by other people. You got to imagine the original Iliad was probably way different. And then people kept retelling it and adding more and more fucking wild shit. It was like a 20-minute YouTube video.
Great for conveying tone, right? So here's a soft bit, doo-doo-doo, but then this is a big dramatic bit. Dun, 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 dun. Now, the Iliad starts with this guy, Menelaus, king of Sparta, and he has a wife, Helen, and she is a very fine lady. And then the Prince of Troy shows up. His name is Paris.
I love Troy, the
and he
movie. I
goes,
want to apologize for it.
Damn, shorty, awooga, awooga. Hey, that's what he'd say, right? And he and his boys abduct her and took her all the way back to his crib in Troy. Now, this makes Menelaus quite miffed.
Hey, hold on there, Buster.
He declares a turf war, but he can't win it alone, so he calls on his homies. Odysseus, king of Ithaca, and
Sean
Achilles, the best drive-by shooter of all time. But Achilles is not in the mood to fight, so the whole of the Iliad is basically spent trying to convince this guy to get involved.
Please.
No.
Please.
No.
Eventually, they win the turf war by being very sneaky. They make a giant horse, which is the symbol of Troy, and they leave it at the front gate. That's their way of saying, oh, I guess you win. We're walking away now. And meanwhile, thousands of soldiers go off and hide in some bushes. Now, the Trojans are very suspicious, but they can see that the Greek ships are actually sailing away into the horizon. So they know, oh, it must be real, must be real. We've won the many years' war. But actually, there's almost no one on those ships, and there's a surprise inside the horse.
This is the part I don't buy. I don't buy any of it. It's not, I mean, I didn't have it, but just like, you know what I'm saying? There's no way the engineering of this fucking hastily ramshackled horse would be so airtight that you couldn't see a bunch of men inside. They would be loud. They would be, even if you could, you know what I'm saying? Like, you just can't, there's just no way it would be sneaky enough. They'd be giggling. Dude, imagine being the guy in the fucking Trojan horse who fucking giggles. Shut up, dude. The one guy who says a funny joke or he farts. That'd be me, dude, because I can't help but laugh. You know what I'm saying? I got an easy laugh. That's what I'll say. I'm sorry. Sue me. Kill me.
When everyone's asleep, boiling hot tzatziki everywhere. And also some soldiers wearing thermal protection. They get out and they open the gates, and then everyone comes out of the bushes, running into the city and kill everybody. After they win the war, Odysseus heads back home to Ithaca. However, on his way, he starts making beef with Poseidon, god of the sea. And Poseidon is mad at the disrespect, so he sends Odysseus on a long-ass detour. And that detour is the story of the Odyssey. Pretty epic, right, kids?
They're waking up to it.
Whoa, Teach, that's fire. I'm starting to come around. That Odysseus guy is literally me. Yeah, I'm going to try that horse trick on my ops. Homer from Homer's Odyssey is not a character in the story. He's the guy who tells
He's
the
getting
story,
through to me.
And then people write
He's
it down.
getting through to me.
Now,
I don't know what he's getting through to me.
The next big one, you've got the Bible. And for all practical purposes, this was basically an oral tradition too. Most people were illiterate by this point, and the Bible was written in Latin. And pretty much
literacy rates in the 1400s are about 10% for men and 1.5% for women, but it's up to half the population. Okay, I see. If you could,
only the clergy knew Latin, so they would be the one to recite it.
Same for Gen Z.
It says that the cute lady at the front should go on a date with me, please. Listen, the rules are the rules. I didn't say it, the book did.
There was a translated version into English, the Wycliffe's Bible, and you better believe that thing was a threat to the order. So they made that illegal to own.
What?
And if you were found with an unlicensed copy, the punishment would be death. So it remained. The Bible was read to the people. Now, by the 1300s came Chaucer, who wrote the Canterbury Tales, and that was a pretty big deal.
Get this book now.
Because it's one of the first significant works written in Middle English. It describes a bunch of people making a pilgrimage from Southwark to Canterbury, which is here to here, which was the longest journey anyone had ever made in the 1300s. And now, it's a whole series of stories, and most of them can be boiled down to, how come if everyone is on a pilgrimage, you're all so focused on material stuff? Oh, hypocrites much? Dong. It's now the 1600s, and they've updated all the textbooks from Middle English to regular. In 1601, King James I said, all right, you know what? Let's everyone have a copy of the Bible they can read. Let's do a King James Bible. I won't feature in it, but I'd love to be in the title. And he commissioned a committee of scholars to rewrite the thing in English, God's language.
Feels kind of self-aggrandizing.
It took 8 years. And that brings us to Shakespeare. And he's a huge deal. Oh, look, we're out of time. But sir, we're supposed to do penis inspection day today. No, there's no time. Roll the end card.
Shouldn't be.
The end.
Part of the thing.
Agent 47 with that AK-47. Brandon's age is 47, getting payments every second.